Okay, so hello everybody.
Hey,
Oh,
We're back.
I'm back from Florida.
Yeah, you're back
Ugh.
from Florida and you don't have COVID, so this is good.
Not yet, anyway. Yeah.
I hope that continues. Yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
I
We
stayed
have
away
a
from them down there, except for family. So
That's smart. It's very
those
smart.
people.
We have a guest with us today. If that's how it looks, I hope. Sara Mayocker's here. She is our manager. She's the manager of our branch in Sharpsburg, so she runs the show down there. And it
Yeah.
is a lively hopping library.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I bet.
Like an entire building.
Yeah, like that's a lot of things to manage. People and the place and services and collections and all that. So, whew,
Definitely.
whew.
Yeah, you got to do it all in a small library. That can be
Yeah.
stressful.
Fixing toilets, all kinds of stuff.
Well, thankfully, we share the maintenance person with you, so he's
That's right.
who's gonna to fix the toilets usually,
That's
unless
good.
it's just like a plunging issue.
Right. But you do have to do that on occasion, right? So today we brought Sara in because we want to talk about science fiction and speculative fiction and horror and fantasy and all the kind of tendril genres that come down from there in a quick 20 minutes. That'll be super easy. And Sara, these are genres you really love and dig into yourself.
Yes.
And I think Brad and I kind of dabble a baby bit in some of those, but I don't read too much in those genres. So this will be exciting for you to provide some cool recommendations. So you can start us off.
Well, I'm also going to do a quick plug for anyone watching who likes these genres. I run the book club, speculative fiction book club through Sharpsburg once a month. Now, of course, during the pandemic, it's all online on
Right.
Zoom. So you can find our books for the rest of the year on the Cooper-Siegel event calendar. If any of those books sound like things you want to read, please get them. You can get them either as a tangible copy through the library system or as ebooks, and join on the Zoom. We make the third Wednesday of the month at 7. And our August title is a classic book. It's now 51 years old, which blew the minds of some of my members. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin will be
The
our
Left
August.
Hand of Darkness. Okay. She's a big name.
Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to look at the titles to see if there's any that kind of spark my interest. It'd be cool to join. So, okay. First title that you'd like to tell us that we and others that we should check out.
Well, sort of my book of the year right now, which I plug to everyone, but very few people who have read it have liked it the way that I have liked it.
Okay.
Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, which is especially notable because it is one of the few speculative novels to be nominated for the National Book Award.
Whoa.
That never happens in genre fiction. Now, it didn't win the National Book Award, but it did win this year's inaugural Los Angeles Times Ray Bradbury Award for speculative fiction. And it's been nominated for Locus Awards, and I think maybe one of the Hugos. And James himself, the author Marlon James, is more widely known as a literary author. So for him to veer from literary fiction into a fantasy novel is also kind of notable. A quick description of it is it's like the film Rashomon, where there is a person being interrogated by like an investigator and telling their version of events. But as the story goes on, like you find that the narrator's story is consistently changing, he is unreliable, and the whole book is written in an African, like, oracular storytelling style. So, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, like, griot. That's what a traditional African storyteller would be called. But Marlon James did a lot of research into traditional storytelling and the archaeological digs that are happening with African civilizations in, like, Mali. So if you like world building and you like fantasy that's not afraid to do something new outside of like the medieval Western fantasy sphere, this is an amazing book. That being said, it's very dark, it's very violent, so I understand why a lot of people I've suggested it to have had issues with it.
I will say we recommend a lot of dark, violent stuff on here, which is, I feel like I have to like pull back from that, but we do.
I read one of his books, A History of Seven Killings, which was like a really, really good book. So I'm interested. I mean, it's not science fiction at all, but I guess it's more historical fiction, but based in Jamaica. I talked about it in one of our other ones.
I remember that.
It's like a fictional story behind the attempted assassination of Bob Marley in Jamaica, and it's really good. It won like the Man Booker Prize, I think.
Yeah, that's why it was like he's a very well-known, well-regarded writer who's moved into a different genre. And I think because of his name recognition, that might be partially why like some of the committees like National Book Award are saying like, oh, fantasy can be amazing. So I feel like a lot of times like the Ivory Tower sort of condescends to genre fiction. Even though there's a lot of amazing stuff happening in it.
I agree that I feel like horror and science fiction and spec fic and all those genres don't get the respect that they deserve. I feel like they're kind of put with like paperback romances in some, not physically put there, but like in people's minds, they're just kind of like, oh, fluffy, but they're really profound, moving stories that are, you know, highly literary and good stuff. I mean, it's kind of too bad. I feel like that's starting to change, but I feel like maybe this book is maybe going to help that along.
Hopefully. I mean, what you're talking about, like the paperback glut, definitely stems from the 80s, like from like the late 70s, probably for like the mid 90s. Like there was definitely like this fantasy boom where like there were all these very generic like D&D, sword and sorcery sort of inspired books all coming out at the same time. So I think that probably created part of the idea of like, oh, this is just dime store novels. But since then, I think we're starting to see a return to its more literary roots.
Okay, so this is Black Leopard Red. What is the title again?
Red Wolf.
Red Wolf. Okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be the first in the Dark Star trilogy, but each volume is going to be a different character's account of the same events.
Oh, interesting.
Just like in Rashomon. So
that sounds interesting.
No spoilers. The second book is going to follow the witch from the first book, and there's no release date on that. So, given how detailed the writing is, I'm not surprised there's not a release date.
Yeah, we have that book at the library too. Just so you people out there know, you can get it from our library.
Nice. Okay, what now I was thinking like mostly we'll get recommendations from you, Sarah, but maybe like Brad and I can throw in a title or two, which you know are from probably like very like not the deep cuts of some of these genres, but because while I don't really read science fiction, I love post-apocalyptic fiction, which I feel like that's kind of under there.
Yeah, that's under speculative's umbrella.
Sure. I have like an actual bookshelf of post-apocalyptic work that I love reading end of the world stories.
What's your favorite?
So my favorite my favorite one is The Road by Cormac McCarthy that won the Pulitzer, I think, the year it came out. So I'm like, who cares about that? But it's a beautiful, dark, disturbing, violent story. And I also love The Dog Stars by Peter Heller, which is, again, very beautiful and dark. I mean, most post-apocalyptic books are dark. So those two are my two favorites, but I do gravitate. I love reading those. I don't know what that says about me, and we don't have to go there, but I love those books.
We accidentally read free dystopian novels in Specta Club last year. Like we would pick something and be like, oh, this sounds like the sci-fi, like straight up sci-fi. Like we wouldn't realize it had dystopian elements. And then by the end of the year, we're like, okay, well, we have like a moratorium on dystopian novels this year. Right. We read Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton, which is like environmental apocalypse with the perspective of animals. We read Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler, which is takes place in the 2020s. So a lot of the things that are happening in this novel feel like they could be happening like today.
That's so disturbing.
I'm surprised they're not, actually.
And then I forget what the other dystopian novel we read last year was, but it was just like it was too much. We were just like, no more dystopian novels.
So Brad, do you like when you dabble into these genres, do you have a book that you know like is one?
I have. Actually, this book I read. It was a while ago, but it was recommended to me by a coworker like a long time ago. It's called Solaris. It's a book. It's by a Polish author named Stanislaw Lem or Leem. I'm not sure how you pronounce the last name, but it's basically like it's weird and speculative, definitely. But like this guy, he travels to a planet. It's a future, and Earth is not post-apocalyptic, but going through like environmental issues, I think. But like he travels to this planet, and the planet's actually a living being. and it gives him like these visions of his dead wife. So he like, and these ghosts come to him, and it's like kind of it's not, it's more of, it's not like a normal science fiction where there's like aliens. It's sort of like or things like that. He's just dealing with these like issues in his life, like his past pain through this planet kind of senses his like darkest secrets, and they're coming back to him, and it slowly starts to drive him insane. So
it sounds like a psychological, like,
yeah. But it's weird, like the descriptions of the planet are so weird, like the seas, it's like kind of alive, and like when the water touches you, you like hallucinate and things like that. It's pretty cool. Like there was, I think, a movie, like a Polish movie in like 1972, which I didn't see.
And it's Andrei Tarkovsky, and it's amazing.
Yes.
Go watch it.
I would like to watch that. I did see the George Clooney version that came out like, I don't know, maybe like early 2000s, which was kind of, that title. It didn't really like, I mean, it was like an Americanized version. It didn't really like, it was all right. It was kind of slow though. But the book is like, I don't know, like it can, for maybe normal like fantasy science fiction fans, it might be kind of boring. There's not much action. It's more of a psychological like thriller kind of, not thriller at all, but like just a, what do you want to say? Like it's more about this guy's mind in his life. Yes, thank you. That was the word.
I've only seen the Tarkovsky film. I haven't read the actual novel, but it's been in my TBR forever. But the film is definitely a meditation on loss. So I feel like, based on what you're saying, Brad, that the book is fairly similar. The Tarkovsky film's like 3.5 hours long, so it's definitely slow.
I can imagine.
But it's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
The book in itself is slow, but it's just like intriguing to where like you just kind of want to see where it goes. I'd recommend it to like someone maybe like Sara. I don't know about people that are just like getting, I mean, it was recommended, the person who recommended it, she was a Russian lady, so she was like, you like weird things, you should read this. My friend Yulia, if you're out there, sorry about the impression, but you know that I'm just kidding. If you're out, I'm sure you're not watching.
So, okay, so we have Solaris. So, Sara, what else do you have for us that we can dive into?
I mean, that's such an open-ended question. The one other book that I really liked like fairly recently, within like the last year, so for sci-fi, because I'm more a fantasy reader than anything. So most of the sci-fi I read tends to be either things for the book club or that has been recommended to me by the book club, because they tend to prefer science fiction, where I'm like the diehard fantasy reader. Right. Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman. She is an Australian Aboriginal writer, and it is a post-colonial science fiction novel where, without giving too much away, Earth has been colonized by an interstellar species. And the way that Earth treats the interstellar species is very similar to the way the Aboriginal people were treated by the Australian government historically. So if you're interested in post-colonial fiction just in general, check it out. But that it's an Own Voices title, science fiction, just adds so many layers to this already very interesting dramatic story. There are lots of different characters with different perspectives on what's going on, both the alien species and the human beings. But I would definitely recommend that.
Sounds good. That sounds juicy. What about movies? I was thinking, like, because we talk about, all media forms. So what about movies that you love? Like maybe, we all know kind of Blade Runner and 2001, and I'm thinking like deeper cuts of some good science fiction and fantasy movies.
So there's a really good independent low budget film that I saw like maybe 2 months before the pandemic happened. So while Row House Cinema still existed, like I mean, not that it doesn't exist, but like that you could still go in person.
I was like, oh my god, don't tell me they don't.
If no one's going, does it actually exist?
They sell movies to stream, so if you like weird movies, support them. But the movie was Coherence, and it's about like 5 or 6 people at a dinner party, and a comet goes by, and weird things start to happen. And it's ultimately a film about multiple universes, like parallel universes. And it's not very exciting, like the way that a lot of other sort of multi-dimension stories are. But for the majority of the film, like, they don't know, like, if the people they're interacting with are the people from their original dinner party, or if they're people from these parallel dinner parties who are sort of invading their space and encroaching upon their space. It's very interesting. I mean, it's on a low budget, so the vast majority of the film takes place in like this one house. There are a few outdoor scenes, and then all of the actors play their versions of themselves. But it's something you really have to sit and pay attention to, because there are clues throughout the film to see like who they're interacting with. So I would definitely recommend that for something that people may not have heard of.
Coherence. Okay.
That sounds like an interesting movie.
I do not remember who directed it. It's something I've never heard of before. I don't know, for more mainstream, I really, really love the 1946 Jean Cocteau Beauty and the Beast. Where Greta Garbo historically is known to have exclaimed upon the Beast's transformation back into the prince, "Where's my Beast?" Like, she wanted the Beast like so much more than the prince character. It really inspired the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast. A lot of the elements that you see in that are like visually taken from Cocteau's film. And Cocteau's film follows the original fairy tale by Villeneuve more closely than some other versions of Beauty and the Beast. So
that's really interesting. Yeah, I love Greta Garbo, so I had never watched that, so I would.
Yeah, she's not in it. That's just a comment she made about it.
Oh, I see. I got it. She's not in it. Okay.
Yeah. It's just that perspective was so widely known from audience members. Like, it wasn't just Greta Garbo who had that opinion.
I see.
She most famously had that opinion.
Go ahead.
I was just going to throw out there, since we're talking about like old French fantasy movies, Georges Méliès is most widely known for Journey to the Moon, which is a little short from 1902.
Yes.
You've probably seen like the rocket go into the moon's eye. But he created special effects as we know them today. So basically the sci-fi and fantasy genres in film owe everything to Georges Méliès. So if you're able to find any of his other shorts, like he did a lot of fairy tale shorts. He also did a number of like, not really horror, but I feel like the time period they would have been considered horror, with like dancing skeletons and like magicians and things like that. So I would just throw him out there as a director. If you're interested in like the history of speculative filmmaking,
that's where to go. Okay. Cool. we have like 2 minutes, and I was just quickly going to recommend a South Korean film called Train to Busan, which is horror, probably zombie-ish, again, like maybe on the fringes of some of these genres, but so good. I don't love zombie movies. Sometimes post-apocalyptic are a lot of zombie things, and it's not, I don't love that part of it, but I mean, other people do. But this, it was just so well done, and it was scary and beautiful, and really, really cool. I've watched it twice, actually, and our amazing ex-circ clerk recommended it to me. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of her name? She now works at a coffee shop, and she's Emma, yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, yeah. So she recommended it, and I was in love with it. So, okay. And then maybe do you have a film, Brad, that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, well, I just watched it actually on Amazon Prime. It's called Vast of Night. It's a movie about like 1950s New Mexico UFO alien kind of deal, but it's kind of it's done in a way that's not like a cheesy one of those. It's like about a DJ and this operator who like pick up this sound in the middle of the night, and it's kind of like a mystery as they try to solve like what this sound is. And like he has people call into his radio show that have like, I guess, like been abducted and like, you know, so it's like all these like creepy stories, and then they kind of go on this like sort of quest to figure out like where the sound is coming from. And it's like it's really like nostalgic, but of like radio and like the 1950s and like that kind of like UFO weirdness that
sounds good.
I'm kind of interested in. And it's just like a really fun movie, but not cheesy, I guess. But I really like, I just really liked it. Was from like a different angle that those movies are usually from. Do you know what I mean? Usually it's like there's UFO and like aliens get out and they kill people or like abduct you, but it's sort of just like more psychological, I guess.
And that's Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's called Vast of Night. It's like brand new, like pretty cool. I don't know. I just came upon it, saw like a commercial on there, and I was like, this looks like this is something I'd be into.
And it panned out.
Yeah.
As always happens when we do these very fast shows, I'm like, oh, there could be a part 2, 3, 4. 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, this could be its own show.
We could do a horror episode in October. Like,
that'd be so
definitely here for that.
I have like so many. Yeah, I had a bunch of things to talk about too. That I was like, apparently, I think I like science fiction more than I say I do because I like all the stuff I read.
So we'll bring you back, Sarah, to do. I mean, a horror episode in October sounds amazing. But we do this every week, so we have lots of opportunities to talk about like very specific genres. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And this was so helpful. And we will see everyone next week. I don't know what the plan is for next week, so we'll see.
Okay.
All right, bye, everybody.
So, budget. Bye.